The liberals are really good at getting us to argue about the wrong topic. They ask me all the time, do you think we should have prayer in public schools? You know, should we teach the Bible in public schools? You know, et cetera, et cetera. I say, look, that's a good question, and I'll be glad to talk about it. But there's another question we need to ask first. The real question is, should we have public schools? I mean, that's the real question. If you read your Constitution in the 10th Amendment, Article 10, also called the 10th Amendment, says, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are preserved to the states respectively or to the people. What this says is, if this document doesn't spell out, if it doesn't say you can do this, then you can't. This was the closing argument to say, whatever you think you have power to do, if it's not spelled out in here, you don't have power to do it. So, no place in the Constitution does it give the federal government the authority to have an education system. The federal government should not be involved in education. They should not be involved in welfare. They shouldn't be involved in an awful lot of things they're involved in. For instance, one of the great statesmen, I believe it was Davy Crockett. I read the story. Jan, you do a lot of literature. Maybe you can find that for me. Where Davy Crockett was in Congress, or in the Senate, I forget which he was in. But they had a fire, and a whole section of the city burned. I think it was Washington, D.C., or one of the suburbs there in Virginia. Massive catastrophe. You know, back in those days, the houses were built, no fire code, and very poor construction, a lot of them, and built real close together. So this fire started, burned the whole city. A lot of people are suffering. No house, you know, no food, no job, etc. Congress voted to take federal funding and come in and rescue these people and give them government aid. Davy Crockett voted for that. And I believe it was Davy Crockett. I may have my name wrong, but it's one of those people like that. Later that year, Davy Crockett was out stumping, trying to get people to vote for him because the election was coming up. There's this old farmer out there plowing the field with his mule, you know, and Davy Crockett stopped and leaned over the fence, and the farmer finally stopped his mule and came over and said, sir, I'm Mr. Crockett, and I'm in Congress. I'd like you to vote for me to re-election. Farmer said, nope, can't do it. Can't vote for you again, ever. He said, I voted for you last time. I thought you're a good man, but I can't vote for you. He said, well, why not? He said, because you voted to give those folks federal money for rebuilding their houses. He said, well, man, there was a whole city burned and they were all suffering. And the farmer said, well, you only did that because you live near these folks and you know about them. What about the people in, 500 miles away that are having, there's catastrophes all the time. Mr. Crockett, you have violated my trust because that money was not your money to spend. That money was my money. And everybody else's money delegated to you to spend according to the Constitution. And he gave Davy Crockett a lesson on the 10th Amendment that the federal government has no business being involved in welfare. This man said, if that city burned and those people were needing some money, every one of you congressmen should have reached in your pocket and taken your money out and given it to them. You have no authority to spend that money, that federal money, on your pet projects because you think it's important. And Davy Crockett said, sir, I am sorry. I promise I will never do that again. And he talked to the farmer for a while, and finally the farmer said, okay, well, everybody makes a mistake once. I'll let it go this time. But rest assured, if you do something like this again, I will not only not vote for you, I will campaign against you. And if we had a bunch of folks that were that smart in our country that realized our government is spending money on things they have no business spending money on. Now, when you mention this, that we shouldn't even have a public school system, people will come back and say, well, don't you think kids need an education? Oh, that's not the question. Of course kids need an education. Of course kids need to learn. Of course we need to have schools. But should the government be involved is the question. And if they don't like what the Constitution says, they should lobby to change the Constitution. They shouldn't just ignore it and go around it.